Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, and yes, a Game of Throws, Season 3. My, how time flies, Season 3 already, and today, obviously, it's the turn of World of Tanks. This is Auxiliar in the Tier 5 M4A1 Sherman in an all Tier 5, so nobody can whinge about the matchmaking for once. An all Tier 5 battle here on the Mannerheim line map. Actually, didn't this map used to be called Arctic? I mean, it was always called the Mannerheim line in the game files, but whatever, doesn't matter. This is set in Finland during the Winter War. Hence why it's called the Mannerheim line, named after the Swedish general who commanded the Finnish army and established this defensive line against the Soviets. Speaking of the Soviets, that's a suspiciously Soviet-looking German tank that Auxiliar's given a little push to here, and that's because it is a Soviet German tank. That's basically a captured KV-1 fitted with a German gun rather than the 76mm low-velocity gun that the KV-1 was originally equipped with, mostly because the Germans actually had those guns and, more importantly, they had the ammunition for them. And that was not an unusual thing. The Germans were not above using captured military equipment. So that captured KV-1 with the German 75mm high-velocity anti-tank gun was very much a real thing. Auxiliar is warning him not to go down there, and to his credit, the KV-1 player is listening because they are horrendously outnumbered, and yes, that's a friendly shooting at them. It's the OI Experimental who's can't help but feel would have been of more use down here than camping the hill at the back there. Actually, speaking of allies who are camping the hills at the back there, as the first enemies roll around the corner, I'd like to draw your attention to two tanks in particular who are going to feature heavily throughout the remainder of this battle, although we won't actually be seeing any of them as the OI Experimental continues to shoot at Auxiliar. I mean, fair enough. There isn't actually a huge amount of other things for him to waste his ammunition on, but that's because of his positioning rather than anything else. But don't worry, there soon will be, because that's a lot of enemy tanks coming around the corner. Oh yeah, I was talking about other tanks camping the back. Yes, two in particular, the T67 and the VK 3001H. German, allegedly Tier 5 medium tank. Actually, the VK 3001H has always been a medium tank. Not a very good one, in fact, a pretty bad one, with a selection of guns that range from the bad to merely mediocre and absolutely no armour whatsoever. But it always had one thing going for it. It was fast. I mean, really fast. And then at around about the same time that the developers decided to stop pretending that the VK3601 was a medium tank and decided to call it what it really had been all along, a heavy tank, and nobody really cared because it didn't make any difference. The devs decided that a sudden gap had emerged in the German medium tank line for a slow Tier 5 medium. And rather than going to the trouble and expense of putting a slow Tier 5 medium in the game, they just decided that the VK 3001H was going to be it. How did they make it a slow medium? They didn't put any extra armour on it. They basically kept everything that was bad about it, and they just made it slow. They took away the only thing that was good about the tank. I mention all of this just to give you a bit of context about one of the other stars of today's show. Oh, and Artie, you really might want to move from there. The other star of today's show, of course, being the T67 tank destroyer. Auxiliar backing off, since they've just lost the captured KV-1. Oh, and speaking of tank destroyers, the Stug. Definitely taking the assault part of his assault gun designation way too seriously. He absolutely should not be leading the charge up there when there are heavy tanks around to do it for him. Just got himself shotgunned there by the M41, who has left it way too late to pull out. So, yeah, the team's fourth casualty, and the team have yet to inflict a single... Oh, wait, no, there it is. T-34 just taken out by the VK 3001H, camping the back of the map with the T-67 tank destroyer. The team are actually starting to inflict a couple of kills here, although they're losing more than they're killing. They're now losing 2 to 9. This is terrible. However, that VK, camping the back of the map with the T67 tank destroyer, is going to be doing some cleaning up on aisle 6. Mostly against the low health enemy tanks, cresting the rise here. and is going to end up with a substantial number of kills. Now, whether that's through luck or judgment, I will leave you to be the judge. Because he's basically doing exactly what the T67 is doing, hiding in the rocks and the bushes at the back of the map, and finishing off low health tanks that can't muster the confidence to push over this ridge. As the team are now losing 2 kills to 10. Low health tanks, by the way, that are all being spotted by Auxillar in these bushes just in front of his own cap circle. Not all of them low health, of course. The Panzer IV over there. These bushes are going to be Auxillar's lifeline, by the way. That and the depression in the ground behind them. See, he can pop up to the bushes and spot through them without being seen. Designate a target, take a shot, back off, and hopefully, at the very worst, only his turret is going to be exposed. Team managed to pull back another kill. Unfortunately, he's just in Sherman. I mean, it's not badly armoured, but it's not especially well armoured either. And he has the great misfortune to have attracted the attention of the enemy artillery. And the artillery is definitely going to be his biggest problem. Oh, he's managed to get a kill though. There goes the Panzer, and here comes the artillery. See, his tracks have been damaged. He lost more than half of his health. But they are starting to pull the kills back. 6 kills to 11, and it's those low health enemies trying to push into the base from the river. 8 kills to 11. This isn't bad actually, and it's the VK 3001H, by the way, who's doing all the cleaning up. He's on 4 kills now. The OI, despite his shenanigans at the start of the battle when he was wasting his ammunition on teammates, he's still alive and he's still doggedly holding on to that corner. As Auxillar just keeps getting pummeled over and over by the artillery, who they can't see him, but they know he's there. And they'll know when they've hit him as well. The BDR just made a serious error of judgment. There's Auxillar's second kill. Backs off. What's he up to here? This is actually kind of sneaky. Watch this. Yes, he's knocking trees over. He's doing it deliberately to try to distract the artillery because he knows they're watching these bushes. Oh, he got himself spotted again, unfortunately. Keeps moving, and yep, there it is. So he tried to knock that tree over to make it look to the artillery in their aerial view that he was moving away from the bushes. Unfortunately, he got himself spotted in the process, so it didn't fool them for long. But he's going to do his best to try to keep them guessing. Unfortunately, they will know that they did inflict some critical damage to him there. So he is still in the bushes. But this is getting kind of close. There's only 1 kill difference between the two teams now. Bearing in mind that this is an episode of A Game of Throws, and the enemy team were 9 kills up at one point, you might be thinking you know which way this is going. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. We're just going to have to wait and see. Can somebody please... Oh God, artillery again. The bane of his existence here. Crew stunned, tracks blown off. That P43 really needs to die. Auxillar's on 1200 spot and damage here. Thank you. The OI experimental takes him out. Okay, so now we can move from those bushes, which are getting way too hot for comfort, without getting spotted by the P43. That gives him a bit of opportunity here to move around. He knows there's an ELC in the cover of the rocks over there. And there's an extremely conveniently placed bush here. The problem, of course, he's the only one who's actually in a position to shoot at the ELC, and if he does, he is going to get spotted. And artillery are watching. Artillery are watching. I wonder what we can do about that. So this is where he starts getting a bit sneaky. He needs a better angle and shot and view of that ELC and anything else that might be sneaking up on the other side of the hill over there. So he relocates, knocks a couple of trees over because artillery are watching. Wait for it. Didn't get spotted. Knocks the tree over. That's fine. Knocks another tree over. Artillery are going to be seeing these trees falling. So he backs the hell away from the falling trees because he doesn't want to get hit again. And then he moves up to the corner, where there's a huge collection of knocked out tanks that provide not only concealment, but cover as well. And he's very careful to not knock any trees over on the way over here. Did artillery fall for it? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Meanwhile, the T67, who, let's face it, is probably the best scout available to the team at the moment because he's small, he's stealthy, and he's extremely fast. And he has a pretty good 76mm gun, so he can take care of himself as well. He's rushing forward to spot targets. And Auxillar is moving up to support him. And he has, in fact, spotted one of the enemy artillery in the open. Unfortunately, Auxillar's first shot misses. And the guerrilla goes undetected, but the second shot was a hit, because you did not see the impact, which means he hit the target. That one was a miss, because you did see the impact. So the guerrilla is probably a one-shot kill. The ELC, unfortunately, he does not have a shot at, but there's the guerrilla again. Taken out, in fact, ammo-racked by the OI experimental. Right. It is here, unfortunately, where Auxillar makes his only real miscalculation of the game, because as he's heading back up here, he gets spotted and starts getting shot at by the T-24. He's manoeuvring to try to avoid any incoming fire. Unfortunately, too little too late, and that's the end of his adventure. That does leave the T-67, the OI experimental, and the VK-3001H still camping the bushes at the back of the map as the T-67 rushes forward to try to spot targets that the VK is going to be completely unable to shoot at due to his appalling lack of situational awareness. I mean, look at where he is, and look at where the T-67's spotting. At some point you're going to have to find your W key, VK-3001H, because you ain't going to hit anything from back there. Right, the T-67 has found and killed the ELC. That is fantastic news. The enemy have now been robbed of its lone surviving scout, and a very potent lone surviving scout as well. T-67, because he's not an idiot, keeps moving, takes a hit from the T-24 from somewhere. Also, it's narrowly missed by the lone surviving enemy artillery. Very wisely uses his repair kit to get his damaged engine back to full functionality, because when you're in this thing, speed is life. Meanwhile, the VK has finally found his W key. I mean, too little too late, but at least he is moving. The T-67 rushing forward to try to... He's found the fair, which is a very rapid reloading and firing artillery with an absurdly good view range. But he's got him. That just leaves the T-24. But then, potential disaster, because the T-24 has seen the T-67, and his first shot, while it doesn't do any actual damage, does blast his tracks off and immobilize him with his repair kit on cooldown. But the T-24 does not hang around to capitalize on the T-67's vulnerability, because the T-24 is making the entirely reasonable assumption that the T-67 is going to be spotting for two teammates, and if he were to stick around while spotted shooting at the T-67, the T-67's teammates would kill him, and, well, the T-67 himself as well, because it would be able to get at least one return shot off. Unfortunately for the T-24, while it was an entirely reasonable assumption to make, it was the wrong one, because while the OI was moving, he appears to have stopped for a picnic in more or less exactly the same spot that he's occupied this entire game, and while the VK is finally moving, he didn't have a shot and couldn't support the T-67, and now there are less than 2 minutes of the game remaining. And while, as tank destroyers go, the T-67 is a decent scout when it has to be, I think the T-67 is conscious of the fact that if he does find the T-24, it's going to be a one-on-one, because nobody's in a position to support him, and he might lose, and that would leave his two surviving extremely slow teammates more or less completely at the mercy of a pretty quick and reasonably stealthy medium tank with 1 minute of the battle to go. So the T-67 makes, in my opinion, the correct decision and goes for the cap circle. And it is going to take him a minute and a half to cap alone, and there's less than a minute of the battle left, but that's okay, here comes the VK. And even if they don't win by capping, unless the T-24 wants to lose, he's going to have to come back and defend the cap, and then they can kill him. And VK, where are you going? VK? You know the cap circle's over there, right? You know, even if you can't look at a battle timer or a minimap, at least read what your teammates are telling you to do. He's finally... The penny has finally dropped. With 22 seconds of the battle remaining, he's finally thought, oh yeah, that cap circle that I just drove past. And if he'd gotten here just 7 seconds, or even 40 seconds early when he first drove past the cap circle, but with 2 of them in here, if he just arrived 7 seconds earlier, as the battle timer counts down, and they're 14 seconds away from winning by capping. So the VK, by virtue of sitting at the back of the map, behind the tank destroyers and finishing off low health targets, ends the game with 5 kills and a draw, which of course is a defeat for both teams. And it was, do you think he was maybe chasing after that elusive 6th kill to get the top gun? I think he probably was. Although I think using the word thinking in connection with the VK 3001H is stretching the truth just a little too far. So a thoroughly miserable result there for Auxilor. Almost entirely due to who on paper looked like his best teammate with his 5 kills, but who in reality, well, you all saw what he did. Draw your own conclusions. And that's it for this episode of A Game of Throws in World of Tanks. I hope, well, I don't think enjoyed it is probably the right word, but you know what I mean. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.